With me, I still have Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, Professor Anthony Killer, Professor of Strategy and Development and Institute Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies, CIAPS, who will be joining us from our Abuja studio, and Chike Ogeah, Managing Director at Mark Foley Hospitality Limited. What's the name of that hotel again? Let me give you a chance for free publicity.
The hotel is Res Ipsa Loquitur.
What do you mean? Go ahead, advertise it yourself.
The Marriott, the Lagos Marriott
the Lagos Marriott.
Yeah.
This is the Managing Director of Lagos Marriott. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Today, we have had two guests. We have had Dr. Kayode Ajulo. We have also had Dr. Obiariri. Both of them are commenting on matters arising in Nigeria, from the flotation of the Naira to the appointment of new advisors, to the declaration of the 10th National Assembly and new developments at the 10th National Assembly, to inflation rates in the country, to several other developments. I'm sure you follow the conversation, but we'd like to take also your reactions. We even went as far as your territory, the National Judicial Council, looking for new justices of the Supreme Court, and Senator Bukachua saying he did not throw his wife under the bus. Let me start with you, Chike Ogeah.
Okay, maybe I should start from the last first, like you said, being my territory. I don't think it is going to be happening for the first time, asking legal practitioners or getting legal practitioners. I don't know what the system was before, whether he was invited or whether he applied, but I know that Augustine Namani, as he then was taken straight to the apex court, the Supreme Court, as from being a legal practitioner. And
Justice Elias also?
Yes, okay.
Was an academic?
Okay, that's right. So it's not...
Nweze, as a PhD.
So there's precedent for that. And I think that once you find a fine legal mind, what role he plays, either as a judge, an academic, or a legal practitioner, doesn't really matter. If he goes into the bench, he can only enrich, the bench and all of that. Then the very unfortunate situation of Senator Bukachua, because I saw it, and in fact, I was almost pinching myself that can this man be for real, or was it a situation of I don't know how old he is, and I don't know what he was trying to say.
He's 83.
Okay, you see, so maybe we need
Are you suggesting that he may be senile?
No, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. But it was so out of character, it was so unnecessary, and it was self-indicting, because no matter how you look at it, I know Kayode was trying to be very, very magnanimous with the way he saw it, but the truth is that he totally indicted himself, and he threw his wife under the bus. People have called out that every decision that lady has made should undergo judicial review, because basically what he said, which I heard and which was clear, was that I'm sorry that I put my wife under so much pressure when she was on the bench trying to help my friends in the Senate. That was basically what he said. Maybe he was still so raw from being that he was not coming back. I mean, the same kind of thing, if you notice on that day, you could see most of them, they had their emotions almost going out of control. The same thing Rochas did with the Senate president when he said, hey, guy, you have to tell me how you did this. And the Senate president was he was wondering what he said. He said, you were beside me at the convention when we were all trying to be president. How did you manage to wangle your way and be back in the Senate? You understand? So that is that. But if we start from the beginning, the first speaker spoke extensively on the economy. And basically what I heard him say was that everything was okay, that the policies that the new government has started off with, early days, the jury is out, we have to wait. The major ones being the subsidy and then the single rate, the merger of the single rates. I mean, you don't have to be an economist, which I'm not, to know that those two decisions are in the interest of Nigeria. because I believe that that was one of the things that fueled everything we had in terms of the inflation, in terms of, everything, when you have people accessing the naira at different rates. And if anything else, I think that wreaked a lot of injustice and inequity, and it visited a lot of hardship on a lot of people. Why should some people have that privilege of getting the naira for 400 and something, and the same people will still get it for 700 and something? So that is a no-brainer. I think that was a great move. Of course, we have all agreed that the subsidy has always been for a privileged, cabal. And the previous government obviously was unable to handle that for some reason or the other. That's funny, because I would have thought that previous government that really didn't care about how Nigerians felt should have been the one to do it. Because from the top of that government, they were totally insensitive anyway. So maybe they just couldn't go that extra hog, I don't know. But basically, I think it's very good that has been gone. And, he talked about the fact that we must stop this dollar-driven corruption that fuels inflation in Nigeria. He said we need institutional reforms. We must get our public servants to declare their assets. We must also get them and make relevant laws of registration of properties. You see, these are all ways of throwing transparency in the processes. And he believes that if we do all of this, and that the burden of proof of public servants' wealth should be placed squarely on their shoulders for them to prove. We should decentralize our security architecture. He talked about the fact that we know different challenges go on in different aspects of the country, and like we've all been mouthing off over the years, security is local. And you can't bring me an Asaba man and take me to Sokoto as a police commissioner, and I don't even understand the terrain of the local place, and vice versa. So if you get people that grow in that area to put that kind of architecture together, it will be good. And he also talked about the fact that we must boost our production base. He gave the example of Nike, Adidas, and we all know how these people look for massive factories in Indonesia, in Thailand, in all these places where there's cheap labor. And we have all of that here. We have a massive industrial hub in Aba and all those places. He talked about it. One can be developed in somewhere like Warri, even in Lagos. Get massive cheap labor, and these guys can be doing all that work here. And that will be a lot of money. That way we can earn foreign exchange. So these are all the things he talked about. Obviously, he talked about the case of the CBN, and he said part of the problem we had was because of the roles the CBN was encroaching into the Ministry of Finance. They had no reason, going into all those financial policies that they were doing. CBN was even rebuilding the National Arts Theatre for us, and all those kind of things they were doing. Obviously, like you rightly said, no, you threw it up. I don't think you said, but I believe that you cannot separate the CBN from the Monetary Policy Committee. So those bank MDs and the CBN, as much as they were all making those monetary policies, they're all culpable for what has happened. So he talked about all of that, and he obviously frowned at the situation where we have oligopolies in Nigeria, whether in the case of the NNPC, in the petroleum industry. Again, let's look at the Tinubu advisory policy. I think it is a good way to go. He has been given the 8 slots for his advisors. What I think has come out from the CVs I've been reading, they have been very impressive. I like that. Maybe they need to put some more people, be a little bit more gender sensitive as well. I particularly don't see anything like a lot of people are raising problems about either the security advisor and the NSA. You see, right now, I think he just has to do what he has to do for now. What he has in place does not preclude tomorrow if he needs to ask the NSA to leave, and then Nuhu Ribadu becomes the NSA, or whoever he likes. So that's not a problem. The same thing with the Wale Edu, that he made the monetary policy advisor. There is an active CBN governor, so he's not going there. He's just going to advise him. You know, like they said, advisors are silent whisperers. They're all around him. They'll just help him for now. And that was why I liked what Kayode said, because at a time like this, I thought it would have been important for him to have a lawyer as well. He should have included that then. Maybe he will do by this week, to have like either a state house counsel or
statutorily.
Yes, or illegal advisor. No, we're not even going to the Attorney General, Minister of Justice thing.
The State House. The State House.
Yes.
Always has a state counsel.
Yes. So
there will be a state counsel in place.
Because in what he's doing now, he has a lot of constitutionalism to deal with. That's why people are saying, does he have the power to suspend EFCC chairman? Does he have? So that guy will have been there, and he doesn't have a shortage of that. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, he has a great choice of two Babatundes who happen to be my great friends, Babatunde Ogala and Babatunde Fashola. Either of them will be a great,
the State House, the State House,
either State House counsel or a special advisor.
One of the positions in the State House is State House counsel.
Yes, he cannot.
There must be somebody occupied because there is a legal department.
That is fine.
In the State House.
He could have done that now. All I'm saying is that
State House counsel does not have to be a special advisor.
That's fine.
It's just a government function.
That's okay.
Professor Aworawo, let me come to you. Well, I would like if you could also talk about the student loans bill.
That is where I want to start, because that is my constituency.
That's right. That's why I left it for you.
That's where I want to start. It's interesting. I think we have had, just like you pointed out, we have had the loan board for a long time, but it's comatose. Virtually nothing is happening there. So this new law, I will imagine, would energize the loan system, so that funds can be available. The structure and method of accessing the loan will be clear, and then people can apply and get the loan. So it's a step in the right direction. But like virtually everybody has observed, the law, there is a whole lot of defects in the law. The law will need to be amended. For instance, someone who earns 500,000 and above is not qualified. If you have a child and you earn that much, you are not. What is 500,000? Less than $1,000 in a year. So it's those who actually need the loan have been removed from qualification to apply by virtue of that. Because you ask yourself, the first question is, whose children are in these schools? They are children of the lower middle class and the very lowest in the society. And a large number of these earn a whole lot more than that 500,000 they talk about. So that provision alone has disqualified those who actually need the loan. So the law will need to be reviewed. In fact, when you look at the law generally, you ask yourself, does anybody even qualify? Because there's also the provision that some civil servants of level whatever to level 17 will have to sign that, will have to indemnify, basically that if the person who is taking the loan defaults, he will pay. Who wants to do that in his old age? To indemnify a loan and, if the person runs away, then you use your pension to be paying, So there's a whole lot about the loan that will need to be, reworked so that the system will be functional. But the other side to it is, so for the loan, the devil is in the details. And, how those who are qualified, those who apply for the loan, how they'll be able to get it. The other side to it is, there's something that Julo did not say. He said, since students in university don't pay fees, and the loan is supposed to be for fees, so what is the student loan for? What is likely going to follow is that fees will now be paid by students. Well, I would like to advise the government to be very careful about that, because over the years, anytime attempts are made to do that, we have always had, the whole system turned topsy-turvy. From Ali Must Go 1978 until now. Ali Must Go was also in that direction, that what we used to give before, we can't give now, and all that. And when you really think of it, this so-called amount, what is given to the universities and all, what does it really sum up to? The entire budget for 2023 for education is 1,080,000,000,000. Out of that, the ministry takes some, the parastatal takes some. So what comes to the higher institution is about 300 billion. I would really say that Nigerian government cannot afford that for the 1 million students it has. The entire students in Nigeria universities are 1.8. Some are in state universities, federal universities. And when you also compare that with the House of Assembly budget, which is 150 billion, for less than 500 people, and Nigeria cannot afford 300, 400 billion for all the 1-point-something million students in universities. And if government is looking for money to save, I don't think that is the area to go. What they can say is that we don't have a lot of money, maybe we can increase it substantially. Then schools can look for a way to, whether they may not call it fees, they may call it levy or something, so that they can use that to augment what government will give and expand infrastructure, so that universities can be something close to what obtains elsewhere. But to say, oh, we are bringing loan, and because we are bringing loan, tuition fees will now be introduced, if government will no longer fund universities. The line between being a hero and a villain is very thin. I advise the president not to go that direction at all. If they cannot increase what they are giving now, they should just leave it as it is and allow schools to look for a way of getting students to pay a little more so that there can be infrastructure and all that. Because Nigerians will even ask, so what does the government exist for? Subsidy is gone, everything else is rising, and yet this small infinitesimal amount given to over 1 million students in universities, government can also give it again. So what does the government exist for? People will ask that question. So my advice is that the loan should be available to help the students. They should not go the direction of we can no longer fund university, because the amount spent is too small for the crisis the thing will create. 300 billion for over about 1.8 million students. When you have another less than 500, getting 150 billion, Nigerians are watching. And that's one area the president has done well. People are saying, what the cost of governance? How come those who are earning multiple,
yes,
they are getting their pay, they are getting their pensions, some are getting 2, 3. Nobody has talked about it. That the president should be energized too to look at that, so that everybody contributes to making Nigeria better. On that, the broadcast he made on Democracy Day was fine, June 12th. He talked about making sacrifices. But it should not be targeted at just the most vulnerable. Everybody must be part of this sacrifice to make Nigeria good. I comment a couple of other things. And again, we understand that the council is advising that NIMASA, the customs and FRS should be merged. It doesn't make sense to me. They all collect funds for government, but for instance, NIMASA also focuses on maritime security. How do you merge that with FRS? They have different functions. And in Nigeria experience, we know that the bigger the structure is, the more unwieldy it becomes. They can make them more functional, but leave them as they are. That is my advice on that. Yeah. And then inflation, of course, we expect that inflation was going to rise, or 22.22 the other time. It has risen now, and and understandably so, because, Finally, Bukachua cannot deny what he said now. It is there. And, whatever made him say so, maybe one spirit entered into him to say so that we can have an opportunity to sanitize the judiciary. Yes.
Chike Ogeah was suggesting the spirit of senility.
I don't.
You were here.
Yes. So it's an opportunity for us to look at the judiciary and see how it can be, clean. There is a poem by Ni Yoshidari, my lord. Where do I keep the bread? People were attacking him when he made that he was insulting the judiciary. Yes. But now it is clear that he has a point in the poem. So it's an opportunity not just to look at Bukachua, but the judiciary. She's not the only one. Look, when they ruled on the Ibori case many years ago, I was in Asaba. The night before the judgment, there was celebration everywhere. They were drinking. So I was asking, how did you know what the judgment would look like? They drank all night.
You were in Asaba.
Yeah, I was in Asaba.
What were you doing in Asaba?
I was in Igbinedion. I was teaching there, and then I went to Asaba. So there's a whole lot we know.
I don't know about that.
So the judiciary is an opportunity to sanitize the judiciary, and I don't think we should go to sleep. We should not allow it rest. We should not have people can try to put the wool to just deceive us to say I didn't say. He said it, and we can do a whole lot by using the opportunity to sanitize the judiciary. Okay,
let's go to Professor Anthony Killer, who is joining us from our Abuja studio. Professor Killer, Maybe you'd like to start with the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly and how the voting pattern went in addition to the other issues that Professor Aworawo and Chike Ogeah have already addressed, and our guests as well.
Well, yes, indeed. Well, if I'm starting from the judiciary, I have said elsewhere, so let me just repeat here that to me, there was no real surprise from, the way the vote went. I think because if you can observe very well, as observant observers will have noticed what was going to happen there. Not least, because the de facto leader of the party, the president of the country, showed where he was going. He showed where his support was, and that made it very clear. But also because the other senators and other lawmakers were very clear who they were going to support, So that made it easy to read. A lesson to learn from that is that this new president, unlike the fair, lanky one that left, the tall one that left, this short, dark one, is going to play politics, and he's going to play hard politics when necessary. You will know where he stands on things, and you will know where he doesn't stand. He's not going to hide his head in the technicalities of sand or saying that is the rule or that is administration. You have a political leader here as president. That is what tells me. On a very personal note, my hope is that this new 10th Assembly departs from the old ones before them. Up till now, Assembly people tend to grade themselves in terms of the number of laws they make. They say the 9th Assembly was better than the 8th because they made more laws. That is fine. I would recommend that that is a quantitative index. I recommend that we go towards a qualitative index now, and we start to look at the quality of law. It is a good place here to say that, contrary to what many people think, the people in the Assembly, in the National Assembly, are not there to represent the whole of Nigeria. They were elected to represent a part of Nigeria, and when they go there, one would expect them to represent that diversity and the peculiarity of each part of Nigeria, so that the legislators that come from Lagos, which is a cosmopolitan urban area, will be bringing forward interests that represent that kind of population. And somebody that comes from perhaps Zamfara will be representing another kind of interest. And between them, they then negotiate for what is good for their people. So diversity and peculiarity. I would also propose one very clear thing, for example, in accordance with this. Never mind the personal bills that each legislator put forward to say, what is your legislator doing? I would propose, and I hope that the leaders of this 10th Assembly take that seriously, that each assemblyman, each legislator, for every deliberation that is done, should present a report saying how that deliberation affect his or her own personal assembly. And in that report, they should show us that they've consulted with their constituency, so that a legislator becomes somebody that truly represents, not somebody that does abstract law or that goes back to give gifts of sewing machine or anything they give back. So they should actually represent more than anything, and they should consult so that their constituencies will know what laws are coming up, have their input, and be able to know clearly how their legislator votes. So that is towards a more qualitative kind of legislature. On the economy, you highlight the inflation, which is a chronicle of an event foretold. I did not want to call it anything else other than just an event. Let's use the technical name. If you remove oil subsidy and you float the naira, immediately there is inflation because you have not introduced more goods and services to buy. So there will be, increase in price and money chasing few things. So that's easy to preview. I think there's something new, maybe because of where we're coming from in the past 8 years. There's something strange going on in this country now, in which people are in a hurry to see how well or badly the government is doing. I think in principle, at least one thing is clear. So far so good, in the sense that maybe to shame some people, I think this administration is doing its best to show that they can do things, that they're hitting the ground running, as they said, and they're rolling out a lot of things. But I think it's naive for people to think they can start seeing effect immediately. You know, you're building a house, you have to build it. It takes some time. And I think it's a bit, I don't know, bombastic of those in government to be saying, oh, the country has changed immediately. Nobody does that kind of magic in 3 weeks. That's too simple a way to look at it. But overall, I think the intentions are good, and I completely agree, or, you know, as somebody would say, I couldn't agree less with Professor Aworawo, David Aworawo, when he points out that the devil's in the details. We have to look at these things. I think he was saying something, let me say for him, that at some point people are going to say, oh, ye gods, if you cannot improve my lot, leave me the way you've met me. If these desired improvements are not bringing improvements. So we have to be very careful of that. One thing to say is that as the government is showing itself to be very proactive, I think the people, as individuals and as group, should become more proactive as well. So, for example, let us challenge Professor David Aworawo's constituency to go and show us where the government can actually get more funds to support education the way he's saying. Because I think if Nigerians can know, especially if those 1 million students and their family can know that, you know, that the budget they're giving to their own education is comparable to the one they're giving to 500 people, I think that might affect our reasoning. So individuals and social organizations need to bring to fore those kind of information in a constructive way. To the senator that talked about using his influence on his wife, whatever spirit led him to say that should be investigated. That spirit should be dealt with so that others will not be affected by such statements in the future. The Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is not a beer parlor, it's not a playground where you just say things and you say, I don't mean that. Whatever you say in that place should be meant. Whatever you've gone to public to say should be taken seriously. And I want to publicly endorse those who say all cases done by his wife should be reviewed. Should be reviewed with an open mind. It doesn't mean all the cases will be false or somebody's going to find something there. We might not find anything. But at least for the record and for posterity, let those who come after the senator know that you don't go to the Senate and say those kind of things and get away with it. Let people know. And this is where I go back to where we started from. This is institution building. It is not a matter of trusting one man, because if we put a saint as governor, senator, president the day before he gets there, what if he gets there and he goes mad or some spirit enters him? We need to create a system that does not allow us to depend on the inclination of individuals. And the best way to do that is to, A, digitalize as much as possible our systems. So we digitalize our process, we decentralize our authorities, and we devolve powers. That is the way to make sure that nobody sitting in one room is acting, you know, over other person. At the moment, we're having a lot of policy announcements. Again, let me use what we use in the classroom here. Policies are great. You then need people to manage it well. You then need programs that will sustain those policies. You then need policing to make sure accountability is done. Then you then need to ensure practice. So those are some very crucial pieces that we need to apply in the system we're doing. Dr. Benabati made an observation, which I think we should take there. When he observed that the role of the special advisor on monetary policy apparently can constitute a kind of risk of friction with that of the central bank. Yes, it appears so. And I think the error here is twofold. I think I have an idea of what the government is doing, and I think it's a good thing, but I think that title is wrongly named. I think they should have given it another name. Because the monetary policy, from practice and in law, belongs to the central bank. So one can advise the government on economic issues, and then through that, put some advice on advisory issues. On monetary issues, on monetary affairs. But talking about institution building, I believe moving forward, and this government would do Nigeria a lot of good if it becomes the first government in history to do that, is that when people are nominated by government, when policies are made by government, it is a very good thing, not just to give us list or announcement, but to come with a bit of explanatory note. You do not need more than 250 words, perhaps a lot less, to say that this special advisor will be in charge of A, B, C, Y. You give a very short terms of reference, because if that
Professor
term of
Killer?
reference had been given, we shall have no need to speculate, guess,
Professor
or
Killer?
suspect. And that is what happened when you have a void in communication. I'm
Professor
hoping
Killer?
that the new administration will dare this kind of way of doing things as a way not only to govern, but also to communicate with the people.
Well, Professor Killer, Professor Aworawo, and Chike, Ogeah, let's take just one more topic, and I expect that the comments on this will be very brief since we're running out of time, and that's away from electoral matters. A former Niger Delta militant, Mujahid Dokubo Asari, has accused the Nigerian military of being directly responsible for the rampant oil theft in the Niger Delta. After meeting with President Bola Tinubu, Asari said he assured the president that there will be no more incidents of oil theft and vandalization in the oil-rich Niger Delta region. So, well, that's what he said. But what I find wrong there was that Asari Dokubo was taken to the media briefing room. He was sitting in front of the coat of arms of Nigeria as a non-state actor, using the platform of State House. That room, I used to run that room, that media briefing room. Who is he? If we want to interview non-state actors, they stay in the corridor. But they gave him that exalted seat to say what? But now he has said something. He has said soldiers are the ones stealing Nigeria's crude oil. But the military headquarters, defense headquarters, has said no. The Navy has also kicked back. So who is stealing our oil? Let me start with you again, Chike, Ogeah. You are from the Niger Delta. Who is stealing this our oil? Briefly, we have very few minutes to go.
Well, you have sorted out the puzzle for me, because for me the real puzzle was, there were so many things people were complaining about. Is it what he said, which is what you're asking me? Is it where he sat? I have worked in the presidency, but have never worked in the villa. You have, and you've just, by your own admission, said you used to run that room. So obviously, because I wondered myself, seeing him sitting there. Well, this is a new government. I guess maybe mistakes will be made, and then they will learn as they go along, But then if we probe the substance of what he said, which is the most important thing, let's leave where he said it. I don't think what he said is new. I don't think it's something Nigerians can say they are hearing for the first time. Your own boss had gone down that route before, but he had a different militant guarding the pipelines. Asari obviously is making a pitch for himself. This is a new dispensation, and maybe he wants to be the Tompolo of this time, So we just watch, but things are evolving,
Professor Aworawo, briefly, before we go to Professor Killer.
Well, he's partially right. He's partially right because over time...
You agree with him that our
not
military...
totally. Yes, that I say partially. Yes, partially because over time...
You agree that our soldiers are thieves?
That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that over time, some soldiers have been fingered and arrested. Some, even civil defense, I said the soldiers are intimidating. So civil defense people have been arrested for stealing oil over time. But the figures he gave, that 90-something% of the oil, he made it seem as if the theft is just mainly and solely by soldiers. That is wrong. But even the military itself will not deny the fact that some of their men have been caught over time, engaged in, oil theft. So, it's a hodgepodge, it's a variegated group. You have the locals, you have the military, you have even the oil people themselves being part of it. For you to be able to tap into the platform, as we saw, not too long ago, you have to be an insider. No, so like Chike said, it's nothing really new. It is just that he made it seem as if, the theft is just the military. He won't get 90-something% of the theft is bad. So the military itself is wrong by just dismissing Dokubo. When the allegations are made, don't just become defensive. You can investigate who are the people and all that, instead of just dismissing and say, we are not part of it. The man is just making... So he's partially right.
So you think Asari Dokubo's claims should be investigated?
Exactly.
Professor Aworawo, Professor Kila, what do you think? Professor Kila?
Well, I think, I think we should, yes, I can hear you. I think we should not, we're talking about two things. The venue of the statement and the content of the statement. I think we should not dismiss the fact that he used that room as something that doesn't matter. I think somebody somewhere, needs to call people and say, why did you let him use that room? We were a very open mind just to say, what happened? What was your thinking? Then based on that, we can then tell them if they were right or wrong. And maybe, somebody needs to manage another room if they do not know what should be done with that room. If we want to be a serious country, we need to take certain things serious. It doesn't get more serious than the office of the President of the Republic. So I think we need to be very careful with those things. Now, for the statement the man made, I think it is wrong if we continue to follow what the military says. Nobody should be judged in his own case, is what we are taught. Once the Dakobo man has made that statement, the next thing is for investigative authority to follow up on him. To say, so you told us 94 people are there. Who are they? Why do you say so? What are your proof? And let's investigate them. Okay. In some part of the world, the judiciary action is mandatory, not discretionary. Okay. Maybe we need to consider those kind of things as well.
Okay, you're very right, Professor Kila. Nemo judes in cosa sua. That's the principle. And you are also right. Some presidents will choose their own rules. They can change the rules. They can name things differently. After all, the president of Nigeria has almost absolute powers under Section 5 of the 1999 Constitution. If they like, they take anybody to the inner room. It doesn't matter. Anyway, thank you very much, Professor Kila. Thank you very much, Professor Aworawo. And thank you, Chike Ogeah. You've been watching This Is Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now. And thank you very much for watching.